put in where I'm coming from. Alrighty. And one more time, thank you everyone for joining us. We will be recording this today. So if you're not comfortable with having your camera on, no worries. And in just a moment, I will introduce everyone and get started with the agenda. All right. Okay. Again, thank you so much. Your participation, really crucial. We're trying to build a community here. Still here. I think we're having some audio issues for some people. Okay, why don't we get started then? We'll go on to the next page, if that works. Thank you, Tanya. All right, so I'll just make this really brief. The team here today is going to be Lucy. She's amazing. She's 17, a junior at Myron B. Thompson Academy. We have Clara. She's 16, a junior at Iolani. We have myself. I'm Sarah. I'm 21. I am studying global environmental science at UH Manoa. And then we have the amazing Lauren. She's with Sierra Club. She's community organizer, 34. She's got a little munchkin and she's the greatest human being. And she's a UH Manoa alumni. Okay, next page. All right, so for today, we've got good amount of slides. So what you can expect with us, we're going to start with ground principles. We're going to go into basics of energy justice, environmental racism, clean versus renewable energy, right? Because they're not the exact same thing. Energy systems, building a movement, and we're going to have a breakout session today. So it'll be about 10 minutes long, and it's going to be where we can start collaborating and creating ideas and getting movement together. And then we can just hear from you all more and know what you guys are interested in. And then we'll have an optional pauhana at the end of the hour, and it'll be about 15 minutes optional if there's any burning questions or anything last minute to share and whatnot. So again, thank you so much for being here. We're just debuting this Energy Justice Resource Initiative today, and we're so excited to have you here. So I will now hand it off to Lucy.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the introduction, Sarah. Yeah, so before we really dive into what energy justice is, we want to go into this with a certain set of principles and like ground ourselves in these values. Because we really want to share and build an energy justice movement that's rooted in these ideas. So we want to be inclusive and invite all the people to the table. We want to emphasize organizing from the ground up, letting people speak for themselves, work together in solidarity and mutuality, build just relationships among ourselves, and commitment to self-transformation. In this space, we want all voices to feel equal and create a space where we feel encouraged to share our thoughts and questions, because we're all just trying to learn and build up our knowledge together. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so what is energy justice? I think that's kind of the guiding question today. So energy justice brings together racial, economic, and social justice to end energy burdens and inequities. So the bottom line is that energy sources are a public trust here in Hawaii, and just like our streams, our land, our water, our air, and they should be cared for the same way. Energy has become a necessity, and that should be for the benefit of the people. So I'll actually pass it off to Clara to kind of further dive into that and give us some examples of energy justice and injustice.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. So one of the main reasons why this is so important is because we keep seeing a pattern of these energy projects, both dirty and clean energy, being placed in low income and working class communities, and then disproportionately impacting Indigenous communities and communities of color. And so some examples here on the islands are AES Hawaii, which is the last coal plant in the state, and it's on West Oʻahu. And AES transports its toxic coal ash to the PVT landfill in Nanakuli, and then it's used to blanket the day's trash. And this harms the workers and then the surrounding community's health and air quality. And then the Kahuku wind turbines are the largest turbines in the whole country, and they're placed in the communities of the working class and Hawaiian residents. And there's also a problem of they're placed near the habitats of native bats and also birds, so it can like threaten their safety as well. And then there's also other current projects that are planned in Hawaiian and communities of color and on agricultural lands. And so those raise environmental concerns and then also concerns of like resources if it's going to be on agricultural land. And so, yeah, so we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So when talking about these projects, it's important to note that clean energy and renewable energy are different, and also both of them are not completely perfect. So to break this down, clean energy comes from zero or minimal emission sources like solar, hydro, and wind power. An example of this is hydroelectric power, which diverts water streams, and this can cause harm to the surrounding environment because it's changing like the way that the water normally flows. And so this just goes to show that even though clean energy releases the least amount of emissions, it can still be harmful to the environment. And then for renewable energy, it comes from sources that are naturally replenishing but flow limited. And so an example of this is trash incineration, which can be harmful to the environment and also to people's health. And it also carries a lot of pollutants and emissions, yet it's labeled as a renewable energy source. And so this can be problematic if we rely so much on the production of trash in order for us to get renewable energy. So once we can identify that, even if it's better than the normal types of energy creations, clean and renewable energy aren't always perfect. So that helps us when we're keeping these conversations, and it's also important to note the difference between clean and renewable energy.
Thank you so much for that, Clara. So that just giving a bit of a backdrop, because I'm going to be going over just, again, like scratching the surface of our energy system, or how our current operator is, Hawaiian Electric. So one thing we bring up a lot is that it is a corporation owned and private investors predominantly, right, are the ones who are a lot of the top decision makers, because it's a profit driven system, right? Like profits to shareholders is often how decisions are made, rather than say what's happening at the ground level. So Hawaiian Electric, we refer to as Hiko a lot on Oʻahu, but there's also like subsidiaries or on different islands. It's like they call it Miko, so there's like Maui Electric, as well as Hawaii Island, but it's all the same parent company. And again, going back to the ownership, some of the biggest investment firms in the world with like trillions of dollars of assets actually own this company, and they have actually so much capital they own American Savings Bank, if you didn't know that. And so yes, they service 95% of our population. And something that I really value is history, and how did this utility that we have today come to be. So it was incorporated in 1891. Okay, so this is centuries old utility company that's been around. And I will put later in the chat an article I did write about how deeply intertwined it is with our political history, social history, and the overthrow. Just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of that, though, and just so important is Hawaii actually developed electricity really early on, and that's a tribute to the monarchy at the time. King Kalakaua went on a global tour. He saw in Paris, he saw electricity generation and wanted to bring it back to the islands, and they were able to successfully do that. One of the sources was even using Nu'uanu streams, hydropower, so a renewable energy source. And fun fact, the Iolani Palace actually had electricity before the White House at that time. So it was a big thing, the innovation, bringing it to the islands, and it also gained a lot of business interests, which was still happening at the time. And so the first president of Hawaiian Electric, William Hall, a missionary turned merchant, he was actually one of the key players in the overthrow. And an example is 5 days before the overthrow happened, Queen Liliuokalani, she had set to sell the franchise of electricity, of a utility. And it was a new constitution she was also setting out that would give back a lot of the powers that were, taken at the time from King Kalakaua through the bayonet revolution. Again, I'll send the article to you, but long story short, so William Hall was one of the people who kept martial law during the overthrow. And so when the bid came for a company to purchase the utility from the kingdom, Hawaiian Electric was the only one to bid. And so they got it and they've had it ever since. Why is this important? Because it's really showing that they've always had more of like a business interest, profit making, than really about electricity generation. Because again, this was a big innovation at the time. And so they saw that enterprise opportunity. And so here we are over 125 years later with the most expensive electricity in the nation. A lot of it's from imported fossil fuels. And so just, again, they're in the industry of making electricity, but it is a big business and it does gain them a lot of profits. And again, as Claire mentioned about the targeted siting, like where these projects have been historically in Hawaii, have been, again, in areas and burdening through pollution, the dirty end we're going to see in clean energy as well. So Sherry kind of shared some of that. I don't want to belabor that, but we can go to the next slide. So I call Hawaiian Electric the renewable energy sloths. Sorry, sloths, but there has been an intent for the state to switch to 100% renewable for years, since 2015. And so where we are today is nowhere near the 100% we need to be by 2045. One big energy producer is coal. If you understand coal or not, it's just the dirtiest form of energy to produce. And we have a coal plant operating in Kapolei. And it, again, provides a significant amount of energy. There is currently no real clear plan of what is going to replace, say that, one source. And we do have, we passed a coal ban bill. So by 2023, the coal plant should shut down. But we want to be very critical, because if there's nothing else to replace it, that it could potentially give justification to extend the coal plant, right? If we need energy, we need to end fossil fuels 100%. But I think what could potentially happen is they justify extension. Also, we will hope to see a distributed energy grid where it's more community-based solar. And in 2015, there was a program to provide cost savings to low-income communities, because it is an equity issue too, right? If you cannot afford energy-efficient appliances, can't afford solar panels, then you're kind of stuck, right? Reliant on our fossil fuel-derived energy. And only two projects have really come from that program since 2015, and both are controversial. One is in Wahiawa, and the community is opposing it to some degree because it's on ag land, right? Solar farms on ag land, putting people, community residents in the position of, do we want food or do we want energy? And it's not a fair position to be in. And so rightly so, they are concerned about that. And then on Molokai is trying to create a co-op, which would be incredible to have a community owned, locally sourced energy. And HECO is currently undermining that intent with their own self-build team, which directly competes with them for that type of energy production. So we don't like seeing that either. And as Claire mentioned, H-Power. H-Power is a contracted facility because it is through the city and county of Honolulu. So it's a waste to energy facility. So again, going to that renewable energy as you know, an energy source, but trash incineration is heavy pollutants, heavy emissions, and it directly contradicts our goals to be zero waste and deal with plastic pollution and recycling. And HECO actually fines the city, which is i.e. taxpayers, for not producing enough energy, for not producing enough trash for energy through Covantas. So these are all kind of reasons why we have to be really paying attention and engage on what our energy system looks like. So I'll stop there. And we can move on.
All right, great.
Oh, you went silent.
Dang it. Thank you. Sorry, I thought I'd seen that too, and then I thought I clicked unmute. Okay, so our initiative, we want to take back power, or kind of help give back power to you guys. So the first step in doing that is equipping ourselves with this knowledge, vision, and collaborating on what energy justice looks like for our islands. So really what we're doing today, we're just scratching the surface on these topics. So we're inviting you guys to come back every single month so that we can have this space and come together to educate ourselves on how these systems work, so we can join as a group of like-minded people who are interested in energy justice, working towards community-based solutions. So what we're building here together is a movement that is, you know, organizing for a future where we're not reliant on extraction and exploitation of our natural resources, and people from a profit-driven energy system. We want a just and equitable solution. And I'll just help share what a just transition is on the slide. So it means that everyday people and community members directly impacted by the energy system are part of the decision-making process. Okay. And next slide. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So one of the ways that we really want to help take back the energy system and root our energy transition in the community is going to be through creating a foundation for energy justice as a resource, like probably a website. So today we want to have a community discussion about what energy justice is and the different things that would be useful in a resource like this. So I'm actually going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. And show you how we're going to be using, how we're going to be having these discussions in our breakout rooms. So we have two questions on here. This is Padlet. I'm sure some of you might have used Padlet for school before, but if you haven't, I will walk you guys through how to use Padlet. So as you saw, I can add a post, and then you can type in the post, like test. And then what's cool about this is you can connect your post to the question. You can also label it, like, sure, whatever's. And then you can drag that around, and so people can fill in the posts around you. So we're going to have 3 separate breakout rooms today. So we're going to ask that everybody, once they place their Padlet note, keep it where it is. You can also color coordinate it if you want to. Probably just keep it on white. And then you can also add other Padlet posts to that one if you have a similar idea, or you want to build off of what you've seen from someone else. Say you can write test, and then you can connect that there. And I will delete these when we go into our breakout rooms. So I will put this link in the chat, and if you guys can open this up. We will also stop recording our session for today, and we want you guys to turn on your cameras, so hopefully we can really have that face-to-face discussion. If anybody has any questions about Padlet, happy to help.